सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Chapter 12, the four yogas. The four yogas, karma, bhakti, jnana, and hatha. These are the four yogas. I'll read the text, the first topic, and then we'll go into the meanings of it. Chapter 12, the four yogas, four spiritual disciplines. Human beings are separated from Godhead, the Supreme Self, by vasanas. Vasanas manifest as thoughts and desires. Root out your desires, thoughts, vasanas, you become one with Godhead. The union of your individual self with the Supreme Self is yoga. The merger of the conditioned consciousness, the ego with the pure unconditioned consciousness. Yoga is derived from the Sanskrit root yuj. Yuj means to join, to unite. The Shastra scripture has prescribed four yogas for the eradication of vasanas. Bhakti yoga, path of devotion. Jnana yoga, path of knowledge. Karma yoga, path of action. Hatha yoga, path of compulsion. These four disciplines have been designed to suit the four distinct categories of humans, classified according to their inner nature. Their natures depend upon the relative strengths of their mind and intellect. Thus, there are the emotional, intellectual, active, and the indolent classes of people. Following the respective discipline, an aspirant can gradually reduce his desires, prepare himself for meditation, leading to the ultimate state of self-realization. The one who belongs to the emotional cadre has the mind more pronounced than the intellect. His heart predominates over his head. He is more impulsive, emotional, devotional, less rational, intellectual, contemplative. He gives in to his feeling and emotion. The mind rules his personality rather than the intellect. Such a person is designed for the path of devotion, bhakti yoga. He would need a form, an altar, a personal God to pour out his love. His mind revels in the remembrance of the Lord of his heart. The devotion to his Lord displaces all other feeling and thought. Consequently, his mind is focused upon the higher. With sustained devotion, the devotee becomes free of his desires. The second type is the intellectual, whose intellect is more developed than the mind. His head predominates over his heart. He is more analytical, rational, less impulsive, emotional. His intellect controls the passions of his mind. He remains objective, does not succumb to his feeling and emotion. He is logical in his approach to life, an inquirer, perceives the distinction between the terrestrial and the transcendental. But he will not be satisfied in merely postulating a personal God, does not take things for granted. He needs logic and reason to accept anything. A person of such caliber is suited for the path of knowledge, Jnana Yoga. Following this path, he becomes rooted in the contemplation of the reality. Consequently, his mundane thoughts and desires drop off. The third type, classified as active, possesses a mind and intellect more or less equally developed. He could be sometimes emotional and at other times rational. He has a mixed temperament. The path of action, Karma Yoga, caters to such a person, where both the mind and intellect are engaged. The mind surrenders to the higher ideal he works for, while his intellect channelizes action towards that ideal. Thus, with the mind and intellect set on the higher goal, he sheds his worldly thoughts and desires. The last category is the indolent. The indolent lacks both head and heart. His intellect is poorly developed. He can hardly think, rationalize. No way conceive the existence of the transcendental reality. Nor does his mind possess feeling, emotion. Far from having devotion to bow down to any altar, deity, or personal God. Hence, he cannot take in spirituality either through the mind or the intellect or a combination of both. That leaves him unfit to take up any of the above three courses. The only recourse left for him is to administer discipline forcibly through his physical body, through path of compulsion, Hatha Yoga. Hatha means force, oppression. Hatha Yoga is therefore a discipline administered through force. It covers a schedule of physical exercises known as asana and pranayama and a series of other practices involving self-torture, such as standing on one leg, holding up arms for long periods, inhaling smoke, and other such torturous practices. These are undertaken as spiritual practices. They help to draw the practitioner out of his indolence, help the mind to start feeling. The intellect starts thinking. He gradually grows to qualify for the other three spiritual courses. First, the four categories of human beings is discussed. The four categories of human being is the emotional, intellectual, active, and indolent. Who is emotional? Emotional is when you can look up to somebody and surrender. When you can look up to somebody and surrender. No questions, no reasoning, no nothing. You can surrender. A person who is of that caliber can take up Bhakti Yoga. A person who is of this nature can take up Bhakti Yoga. Who is intellectual? A person who is constantly, he is rational throughout. A person who is predominantly rational suits for the path of Jnana Yoga, knowledge. Then there is the mixed type. Sometimes emotional, sometimes rational. A person is at times emotional, at times rational. So it's a mixed temperament. So the person who has this mixed temperament has to take up to Karma Yoga. And then there is the fourth category. Needs Hatha Yoga, compulsion. What is the fourth category? The fourth category, neither head nor heart. Neither the person can surrender to a deity, an altar. Neither he has feelings nor thinking. It doesn't have both. So neither head, neither emotion, nor thinking, nor a combination of the both, he is left with doing Hatha. And what is Hatha Yoga means? A series of physical exercises. Pranayama, he has said that. Pranayama, asanas, and other kinds of torturous practices, which will wake a person up from the indolence and qualify for the other three. The other three is Karma, Bhakti, and Jnana. Now, before I discuss the four yogas, let us study the four types deeply, the four categories deeply. First, we'll take up the emotional cadre. First, we will discuss the emotional cadre. Emotional are those who can be devoted to a form to a deity, to an altar. And that is enough to channelize all their emotions. That is enough to channelize all their emotions. All their emotions, they can channelize towards that form, towards that deity, towards that God, towards a person. You go and ask him, why are you doing it? What is the logic? What is the reason? He will look at you blank. He will say, I don't know. This is what I am doing. Such a person, devotion. What happens? An emotional person who substitutes, who can channelize all the emotions through a deity, displaces all worldly thoughts. By channelizing his emotions towards the deity, towards the form, all worldly thoughts are displaced. Then the union happens. Bhakti Yoga. This is called the union with the self through emotion. Is called Bhakti Yoga. Emotional cadre are those who are predominantly emotional, are naturally suited for Bhakti Yoga. So first thing is to understand who is an emotional cadre, who is emotional personality, predominantly emotional personality. All transactions of life predominantly will be led through emotions. Such a person is emotional. Anything in life, the first thing that he will see, the first thing he can contact is emotion. The first thing he will see is emotion. Okay. A physical person, what he will do? Supposing a physical person comes to the class, after the class, by the remark, you know whether the person is emotional, intellectual, active, or physical. Hatha Yoga. By the remark, you can know. It's very this thing. Okay. Supposing a person who's coming for the first time to the class, clean shaven, no white, nothing is seen. Yeah. Hair is shaven, face is shaven, everything looks so neat. So the fellow says, as soon as the class is over, he'll ask, how old are you, sir? I will say, whatever my age is. My age is a secret. Huh? Don't tell anybody. I'm 50. Huh? I am keeping it as a secret because I don't want people to know I'm a very old man. I'm 50. Oh, you don't look that. You don't look that old at all. You're 50. You understand that person is a physical person. Because that's what strikes him first. Will come and say, what will the emotional person see? The intellectual person will say, he will not worry about whether how old I am or how I look. He will say, the logic is appealing. The logic and reason is very good. The active person will come and say, we have to take it to more people. You know that person is active. You know this person is intellectual. You know this person is emotional. You know this person belongs to the category of Hatha Yoga. Are you able to follow? This is how you can easily, this is how you know how you can How you can identify? You can identify it like this. This is the way to identify. Predominant nature comes out helplessly. The predominant nature comes out helplessly. So the emotional person will say, okay, sir, even if you are scolding, why are you keeping your face so harsh? Why can't you smile and scold? Now, how can you smile and scold? If you are smiling, now you can't scold. If you have to scold, now you have to keep your face. Yeah. Goramadam you have to keep. How can you smile and scold? Emotional person. Every transaction is done through emotions predominantly. That person is an emotional person. Most of the transactions of life is done through logic and reason. That person is an intellectual person. Who is an active type? You can't really predict when that person will be rational, when that person will be emotional. That person himself will not know. That's the active category. Are able to follow the active category? The first two are very easy to understand. The third category, active category, is slightly more complicated because that person themselves will not know when will they be emotional, when will they be rational. You think they are going to be rational and you go to them, they will be very emotional. You deal with them emotionally, they will become so rational and you will not really know how to assess or relate. Such a person is active type. And who's the fourth type? Who's the fourth type? The fourth type is Hatha Yoga. He is calling them as indolent. 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 Indolent means through emotions you can't persuade. Through logic and reason you can't persuade. Okay, here and there you mix both and do. Again that fellow will be like a Buddha in meditation. Nothing can shake that person. Nothing will move that person. That person belongs to the indolent category. And what is the spiritual path for that person? Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga. And what is Hatha Yoga? He has defined it very clearly. Hatha Yoga is the set of asanas, pranayamas, and other torturous practices, which is more a set of physical exercises. That's all. You do those. Get up in the early hours of the morning, go exercise. Correct. That fellow will say, fantastic lecture. You are told to do exercises and you will say, it's a fantastic lecture. Now you know that you belong to which category? Indolent. Indolent. Because anything physical only can wake you up. That too, force. Are you able to follow? And who is an active category? A unpredictable mixture of emotion and thinking. You will never know when that person will be emotional, when that person will be rational. Now, if having described all these four categories, if you look at yourself and you look at the world, you can easily kind of predict majority of the people belong to majority of the human beings belong to the category of active. Majority belongs to the active category. That is why in Bhagavad Gita and all other classes we keep saying do karma yoga, do karma yoga, do karma yoga. Because predominantly people are active. Bhakti yoga is predominantly emotional. Bhakti yoga is predominantly emotional. I don't know whether you have seen any emotional person like that in your life. Always on the edge, boiling. Always on the edge, boiling. You say something, they will start laughing. You say something, they'll start crying. And both are emotional. They just say something, oh, they start crying. I have seen people crying in the classes. I think in the class, why are you crying? I think maybe one they are crying. Oh, I used to think maybe we came and got caught not knowing how to get up and go crying. Emotional. You say something, they get very you understand that person is a predominantly emotional category. So what that person needs a form. That person needs an altar, a form to channelize the emotions. Okay, fantastic class, sir, and they start crying. Now what do you do? If it is a fantastic, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that person is emotional. And most of the people are, you give a logic and reason and explain, no reaction. No reaction, not even knowing what is that. No, absolutely no reaction. And then you try to bring in some emotion and all that, they will get rational. You bring in emotion, they will get rational. You get rational, they will turn emotional. Are you able to follow? See, these four categories holds a mirror. These four categories is the mirror. You know where you belong to, and accordingly you can administer the course. Accordingly, you have to follow the course. So first is to understand to which category you belong to. Predominantly, please understand, as I said in the last class, nobody is 100% emotional, nobody is 100% intellectual, nobody is 100% active, nobody is 100% indolent either. It is the proportion that matters. All human beings have all these four. But to follow the path, you need to know the predominant nature of yours, the proportion of yours. Now, when I say proportion means you can't arrive at an exact proportion. Okay, if you can't arrive at an exact proportion, which proportion you belong to? If you can't arrive at an exact proportion about your own self, where do you belong to? Active category, Karma Yoga. I really don't know my proportions are not. Don't worry. Go because you are an active type. Go to Karma Yoga. It's very. Are you able to follow? This is very, very critical in understanding. I'm trying to make it palatable. That's all. It's one of the important analysis to know where you stand and which path you have to. You have to follow all the path, but proportionately, predominantly, what is the one that you need to do? Emotional category. You talk about attachment. Supposing I do, I remember, those are the days where we are really young, fresh with this knowledge, thinking that we are what Shankaracharya couldn't do, what Lord Krishna couldn't do, what Ramana Maharshi couldn't do. I thought I could do. Yeah. So no, that is that time. Now it is understood that nothing can be done, and keep looking at the time. As soon as the time is over, say thank you, we'll meet next week. It wasn't like that then. No, that was the time where full of in Pune it happened. Even today, this is the joke. They keep making. Even today, Swamiji keeps making a joke of this whole thing. In one class, I have to. After that class, I stopped doing all that. After the class, I stopped doing that. So I have to talk about attachment, and I was analyzing, what attachment is, what are the basics of attachment, and what happens due to attachment, and the consequences of attachment, how deadly those consequences are. I was explaining all that. Halfway through the class, literally, there are about only, it's a very small class. about 7, 8 in that class, that's all. It's a very small class. 1995 I'm talking about. This happened in 1995. A small class, 7, 8 of them in that class. One lady started crying. Oh my God, I am attached to so many things. She started crying. Looking at that lady crying, another, in 20 minutes, the whole class is crying. I didn't know what to do. I stopped. I came back. See, normally, nobody knew what happened. Nobody knew what happened. So, and normally, Swamiji also wouldn't bother about what happened in the class. He wouldn't even bother to ask. He wouldn't even bother to know. He wouldn't know. Why will he? So by the time I take the local and all that and come back to the academy, it will be 10 o'clock in the night. By the time I come, and then only we have to have the dinner and go to sleep. So that's the thing there. So I came. I was having my dinner. He came. Swamiji came. Dinner. Yes, Swamiji. Oh, today you came back from the class. Yes. What happened in the class? He asked. I said, this is what happened. Oh my God, I tell you. Even this February, when I went, in front of 200 people, he was making a joke of this. This idiot went and he made one class. Everybody started crying. At the end of it, this fellow also started crying, not knowing how to. I tell you, the way he narrates it, I go into splits the way he narrates it even today. Emotional category, that's all. Start crying, emotional category. Other category will not react. You will not even know that. You will not even switch off. Yeah. So this is emotional category. What is the intellectual category? The intellectual category is predominant dealings, the predominant transactions of life will be rational, logic, reason, thinking. Predominantly. You see them very different. You see them very different. You know you can rely on that person. You know you can go to that person for advice. You know you can rely on that person, but you will never want to become that person. Why? Because there is that lack of emotional thing so much in him, manifestedly. There is that lack of emotional. So he is predominantly thinking. He is predominantly rational. Such a person is naturally suited for Jnana Yoga. So I spoke the extremes, the emotional category, the Bhakti Yoga, and the intellectual category, the Jnana Yoga. Then comes the third type. The third type, the active. And who are the active? At times emotional, at times rational. He has a mixed temperament. Please understand, mixed temperament means unpredictable. It's not fixed. That person himself, that person themselves will not know when will they be emotional, when will they be rational. Meaning they can neither fully experience an emotion, neither can they actually think deeply. Both are superficial in them. The emotion is also superficial. The thinking is also superficial. Both are superficial in them. For they can neither go to the depth of an emotion, nor can they go to the depth of thinking. Their feeling is also superficial layer. The emotion is also the superficial layer. Therefore, what are they? What should the path that they have to take? The path recommended for them is Karma Yoga, where both mind and intellect are engaged. Give him the path of Karma Yoga. This is the active type. Fourth type is more, very rarely you will come across the fourth type also. Predominantly I am talking about. See, everybody goes through periods of indolence. I am not talking about that. Here we are talking about proportionately indolent. Predominantly, proportionately an indolent person, we find it very difficult. Why? Because the very human nature is fundamentally mixed. Then it is emotional or intellectual is different. Therefore, the very few belongs to this indolent type, and even them, even the indolent type are given a path. Even the indolent are given a path, and that path is Hatha Yoga. Hatha means force, compulsion. You make, you force a person to, you force a person to do and to do. What can you force a person to do? Something that is painful. You force a person, and by external force, that person will be made to wake up. By external force, that person will be made to wake up, because by himself he will not do any action. By himself he will not even have the feeling, not to talk about thinking at all. What to do to them? The path devised for them is Hatha Yoga, asana, pranayama, and other practices. Traditionally, the Vedas and Vedanta talks about karma, bhakti, and jnana predominantly. Why? Because predominant of the human beings belongs to these three categories only: karma, bhakti, and jnana. But Hatha is also a spiritual practice. Hatha is also a spiritual practice, and very few people are naturally belonging to that. Today, even those who are not fit for this go and sit there. All this Ashtanga Yoga, the chakras, all this belongs to Hatha Yoga. All this belongs to the balancing the chakras, rising the power. No power will rise like that. Once you become to the active type, you know there is no power that is going to, no power that is going to rise like that. But don't worry, yeah, you will still go back and believe in all that. As much as you hear, you will still go back and believe. Believe but it really happens, sir. You can balance the chakras. You can balance the, I don't know. Rendu kaalla straight and balance panna mudiyilla. How are they going to balance the? You can balance the chakras. You can balance this. You can balance that. All this belong to the category of Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga, all this is. Walking on water. How can you walk on water? You can train. Yeah, and make people believe that you are actually walking on water. A person came to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And asked him, I have come to check on you. He is going to check on Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna said, yeah, please, what is it that you want to check on me? I want to check how spiritually evolved you are. How spiritually evolved you are. Ramakrishna said, I don't know what you are talking about as spiritual evolution and all. What is your evolution? He said, how do you cross? Because he's living in the other side of the Ganges, no? Some of you would have seen his place. Ganges side, by the Ganges. Beautiful, beautiful place. Beautiful place by the Ganges. He said, how do you come here? By boat. He said, I walk across on water. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa turned to the disciple and asked, how much does the boatman charge to cross the river? He asked, how much does the boatman charge? Those days, he said 4 annas. 4 annas. In 2000, it was 2 rupees. Huh? In 2000, it was 2 rupees. At that time, Ramakrishna said 4 annas. And he looked at that man and said, how many years you took to practice this, develop this skill? He said, 20 years. Your 20 years of practice is worth 2 annas, he said. Your 20 years of practice is worth 2 annas. And what are you talking? That person is Hatha. Today what people do is, they don't understand the purpose of it and just they do it as a physical exercise and they believe that it is something mystical, it is going to help them to evolve spiritually. That will not happen. Can be, it should be done as a form of a physical exercise. Perfectly all right. Yeah, COVID la lung damage da avudunranga. I really don't know what gets damaged. I really don't know what is getting damaged. One thing is very clear. Everybody is going mad. That much is, yeah, that much is very clear. So pranayama, what is this? An exercise that is specifically given for the indolent category to wake up. And people who do it as a mystical practice, believing that it is going to sort out their problems. I am stressed. What do you do? Go for pranayama class. I am stressed. What do you do? Balance the kundalini. Everything will be. Balance the chakras. Your stress will go. Raise the kundalini. You will also float. Yeah. These kind of things don't exist. And it will work only to that small minority who is of the indolent type. And you will never come across those indolent types. It's very difficult to spot that indolent, type. Because the vast majority of human beings are, the very fact that you are born into a human embodiment, the very fact that you are a human being itself is a mixed temperament. That would be the starting point for most. So it would be a mixed temperament. So what is the path that we have to follow? If you are of the mixed temperament, follow Karma Yoga. These are the 4 types: the emotional, the intellectual, the active, and the indolent. Is it okay till now? Yeah. Continue reading the text. The 4 categories of human beings only indicate the preponderance of their respective nature. None would be wholly intellectual or emotional or combined or wholly lacking in emotion and reason. Hence, each category of person would comprise a major portion of their respective nature with minor aspects of the other 3. An aspirant has to primarily analyze and assess the proportions constituting his nature before he chooses his spiritual discipline. Therefore, thereafter, he needs to proportion the 4 yogas to suit his composite nature. Thus, the one categorized as intellectual would need preeminently Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, along with graduated portions of the other 3 yogas to fulfill the proportions of his remaining minor natures. So do the emotional and active categories need to concentrate mainly on their respective yoga and proportionately combine with the other yogas, while the indolent has to plunge into Hatha Yoga with traces practically nothing of the higher 3 disciplines. If an aspirant follows this methodic procedure, his spiritual development would be meteoric. But hardly anyone understands the logic and reason for such an integrated discipline. And none follows any method or system in their spiritual life. Hence, the world bitterly complains of lack of spiritual development despite their efforts in the spiritual field. Now what he is saying is, having understood these four natures, the next point is, every human being has something proportionately high and a mixture of other three. And each category of person would comprise a major portion of their respective nature with minor aspects of the other three. So, a human being is a composite personality of all the four. So, from this, what do we understand? A human being is the composite personality of having all these four categories. Since a human being is having all these four categories, one has to analyze one's proportion, find out which category they belong to predominantly, and accordingly follow the proportion of the paths. When it is followed in this manner, the spiritual progress would be meteoric. If done in this manner, the spiritual progress would be meteoric. If not, the efforts go waste. The efforts go waste. An intellectual person sitting in an emotional practice, an emotional person coming and sitting in an intellectual session like this, or an active person doing something else. So what do you understand? The world bitterly complains of lack of spiritual development despite their efforts in the spiritual field. Despite the efforts they put, people complain that there is lack of development. Why? Because they do not follow this. They do not follow this proper method. What is the proper method that you have to follow? The proper method that you have to follow is a proportion of all these four yogas. And then when he talks about the Hatha Yoga, he says the indolent has to plunge into Hatha Yoga practically nothing of the other three disciplines. Hatha Yoga person cannot follow neither karma nor bhakti nor jnanam. So that is why we talk about karma, bhakti, jnana as one package, Hatha as a separate one. Are you able to follow? So practically traces of nothing of the higher three practices. What are the higher practices? Karma, bhakti and jnanam. Who is the, he has taken an example of the predominantly intellectual category. The one who is categorized as intellectual would need the path of knowledge along with graduated portions of the other three yogas. Predominantly has to practice Jnana Yoga, plus he has to add the other three also. What are the other three? Emotional, the Bhakti, Karma and Hatha. So does the emotional, so does the active. And when it comes to Hatha Yoga, there is no proportion there. Practically other three will cease to exist and this fellow will be predominantly doing only Hatha Yoga. Like whipping oneself, cutting oneself, injuring oneself. All this is hatha practices. They whip themselves, and then they whip with a rope, or they whip with steel wires, or they cut themselves with the knife. They walk on the fire, put their head inside, water, sleep on the bed of thorns. And the inhaling smoke on the South India side, like, we will not see a lot. You go to North India, you can see the inhaling smoke and suffocating themselves. All these are categories of hatha. Hardly anyone understands the logic and reason for such an integrated discipline. You can call it as integrated discipline. You can call it as holistic discipline. Any word you can use. Yeah. Because nowadays you have to nowadays you can't use the word integrated discipline, because nowadays you have to use, it's holistic, isn't it? Holistic na ellathiyum pottu chivuda adicha, it is holistic. You need to understand your predominant nature, pursue that, and also pursue the other three. When you proportion like this and do, your spiritual growth will be meteoric. Your spiritual growth will be meteoric. Continuing the text, the human mind is congested with selfish thoughts and desires, like cotton plugged with impurities. Bits and pieces of extraneous matter stick firmly to cotton. One cannot pull them out easily. There is a special process for purifying cotton of its impurities. It is known as carding. The impure cotton is beaten with a card, an instrument used for the purpose. The mass of clogged cotton is thinned out with the beating. Fine fibers of cotton separate and fly about. The impurities sticking to it drop down by gravity. The pure, fluffy cotton is collected. The same phenomenon takes place in the mind. The human mind is plagued with egocentric desires. They cannot be easily removed. The practice of yoga helps to free the mind of its desires, like carding frees cotton of its impurities. Yoga sets up a high ideal for self-development, culminating in self-realization. The mind is drawn towards the ideal. It expands into the vastness of the ideal. As a result, the selfish desires drop off. The mind becomes purified. Thus, with constant practice of the yogas, the mind is rid of all desires except the ultimate desire for self-realization. It no more rushes to the world. It turns introvert. An introvert mind alone is qualified to meditate and attain spiritual enlightenment. Meditation is the final gateway to self-realization. The practice of yogas take you up to the gateway. The different disciplines purify your mind of worldly thought and desire. The mind becomes qualified for concentration and meditation. Without preparing the mind, the practice of meditation is a mockery. You cannot run before you can crawl. One cannot really meditate unless the mind is cleansed of its desires. This is a law. Both the preachers and practitioners of meditation are ignorant of this fundamental law and plunge into meditation without the initial preparation. They are lured into it because of the apparent initial feeling of peace it creates, not realizing that the peace gained is temporary. It soon wears away. Another reason for people rushing into meditation is that its procedural details are simple, easily communicable. far removed from the protracted deep study and reflection on Vedantic truths, which are difficult to convey and whose efforts are slow, practically indiscernible. Hence, the temporary effect of meditation has been exploited to a point of absurdity, which has resulted in a worldwide craze, a mania for meditation. Few realize that meditation is the highest technique that a human being can learn and practice. It is the most specialized art skill, which requires a well-prepared mind freed from worldly attachments and desires. Only a qualified mind can be trained to meditate. Meditation is the art of keeping the mind in sharp focus upon a single thought to the exclusion of all other thoughts. The mind maintains a silent chant of a mantra, word symbol under the supervision of the intellect. The intellect does not allow the mind to slip into any other thought. The steady, single-pointed, conscious, mental absorption in a single thought is meditation. Meditation practiced thus leads you to the ultimate state of self-realization. So, finally, what he is concluding this topic is human nature is of 4, and then human being has one will be proportionate, one will be predominant, and the other 3. So, but nevertheless, all human beings have all the 4 natures, and you need to administer the course according to the proportion. What is the purpose of this yogas? Why do we have to follow this yoga at all in the first place? Because it is only through the practice of yogas the mind will be purified. For the mind to be purified of the desires, selfishness, attachment, possessiveness, yogas are necessary. The yogas is akin to the practice of carding. That's the example is given. The carding, where the cotton is beaten. What happens? It floats. The pure cotton floats and the dirt falls down. And then the pure floating cotton is collected. That's the process of carding. Yoga sets up a high ideal. The mind expands in the vastness. When the mind is expanding in the vastness, the selfishness drops. The selfishness drops. In the vastness, the mind expands, the selfishness drops, and finally what happens? Finally what happens? The person is ready for meditation, self-realization. This is the sequence. So what is it? Know your nature, proportionate the yogas according to your nature, understand it is akin to the carding process. All this will mature you to meditation, and meditation is the final gateway to self-realization. Again, the mistake that people make, which we have discussed it any number of times in this class, is plunging into meditation. The whole world is doing that. The whole world, even today, the whole world is plunging into meditation. And so many people ask us also, do you teach meditation also, sir? Say, no. We tell people not to. How not to meditate? We teach people how not to meditate is what we teach people. Why? Because meditation is a highly advanced practice. Vashehi yashendriyani tasya prajna pratishtita. Verse number 67, chapter 2. Who is the Who is a Sthita Prajna? He didn't say the person who's got his mind under control. Who's the Sthita Prajna? A Sthita Prajna is one who got his Indriyas under control, the senses under control. The senses say it's not under. The senses say it's not under control. One samosa is enough, no? Yeah. One samosa is enough to. Yeah. One laddu, one samosa is enough to upset the entire thing. So where is meditation? Therefore, he says, only a qualified mind can be trained to meditate. Again, carefully follow. A qualified mind automatically cannot meditate. A qualified mind can be trained to meditate. Again, training is required there also. But even before venturing into it, is cautioning, do not venture into it. And people venture into it. Why? Anything that gives temporary benefit, anything that gives instant benefit, people will fall. Yeah. Anything that gives immediate benefit, instant benefit, people will fall. What is the immediate benefit of meditation? What is the immediate benefit of meditation? Deep sleep. Yeah. Sir, on the Vedanta class, we are getting that benefit, sir. That meditation. Yeah. Even in Vedanta class, we are getting that. We are getting that benefit. That's unga class la konja extra dose irukku. At least other classes la konja dose kammi irundha kuda. In your classes, the dose is very, very high. Okay, it's like Om Sahana Bhavatu sollumbodhe lullaby starts. Yeah. It is starting. Why in meditation? It happens even. What happens in meditation? A temporary peace. Third day, that peace is lost. Third day, that peace is lost. And if you go and ask, what do I do? That fellow will say, continue the practice. You will get it again. Continue the practice, you will get it again. And you will also continue to practice, damaging yourself, not knowing what is the damage that is happening. It's a highly advanced training. So he says, meditation is the final gateway to self-realization. Who is qualified for meditate? A person who doesn't have any other desire except the desire for God realization, self-realization can train. A person cannot meditate for 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening. Sir, before your class, I sit in meditation and then I come, I just absorb everything from the class, sir. I said, very correct. Because you wake up fresh and come and sit in the class, absorption will be better only. No. Where is the difficulty? It will be better. So I feel like saying all of you have a good sleep and then come to the class. It's not because of it is just the meditation is a practice for the advanced seeker. Don't worry. I'm just rushing into all this because there is one entire lesson on meditation. There is one whole chapter on meditation. When we go there, we will discuss everything about meditation in detail. That's why I'm not spending that much time on meditation. So Meditation practiced thus leads you to the ultimate state of self-realization. With this, the first topic is over. I just rushed through because there is a separate chapter on renunciation. There is a separate chapter on meditation. When we go there, we will see it. We will see that in detail. Next class, we will continue with Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion. So we will discuss Bhakti Yoga, and then we will discuss Jnana Yoga, and then we will discuss Karma Yoga. In Hatha Yoga, there is nothing much to. In Hatha Yoga, there is nothing to discuss. Just have to have a whip in the hand and say. Yeah, we just have to have a whip in the hand and whip and say, get up na, ada Hatha Yoga. Yeah, so for that, the book cannot do that. No, therefore, Hatha Yoga is not. Hatha Yoga will not be spoken about. So we will discuss the three yogas. The three yogas of Karma, Bhakti and Jnana. Venkatachalam. More people take up Hatha Yoga, the basic routines for better health. Correct. Correct. That is why we need to do that. Yes. More people do that for better health. We also do that. Every day we do some yoga. Every day we do some exercises. Every day, in the last 6 months, I have increased my pranayama quantity also. Yeah, they said, so all this is for better. All this is for better physical health, but has got nothing to do with spiritual growth.
With spiritual growth.
Having a better lungs and climbing 20 floors up and down is not going to make me
more spiritual.
More spiritual. I will have a fit body. With that fit body, I can be more effective in action and all that. So it is a very good thing for better health, but not the mystical thing. Where I was kind of making it look like a mockery is the mystical thing that people give.
Yes. It is more the discipline.
Yes, it's a discipline. There's nothing mysticism about it. But then you see the mysticism is so much around in the air nowadays. I tell you, every day I get at least 20 forwards, and I don't open any of the forwards. Yeah, you refer anything to me, I will not even. I'm telling you, I will. Even after telling also, I keep getting. Sir, this is very interesting. I said, interesting. That fellow weirdly talks about. That fellow will weirdly talk about some power, something here, something there, something floating in the air. I don't know what. Some chakra, jnana chakshu, third eye. Suddenly something happens. That kind of mystical things do not happen. Those kind of, you may agree, you may not agree, you may not, you personally. I'm not talking about you as a person. People may agree, people may not agree, people may believe, people may not believe. It doesn't make any difference. There is no such thing as mystical practices. It's very good to, if I have to prove to you that I am superior than you, I need to show some mystical powers. No. Otherwise, how can I prove that I am superior to you?
Correct.
As a guru, I have to prove. What is the, first of all, as a guru, I have to prove Nala I am useless. Why do I have to prove? Okay, and second thing is to prove to whom? To a blind person. So, to a blind person, you have to prove that you are superior. And how do you have to prove that you are superior? By showing some mystical powers. By showing some mystical powers. And everybody will come to you after that for what?
Only for that. Only for the circus.
Circus, correct. Nobody is going to come and ask how to attain moksha. They will come and say, sir, touch me. So that, yeah. moratorium Supreme Court la முடிக்க போறானோ extend பண்ண போறானோ தெரியல இல்லையா touch me so that Supreme Court will extend the moratorium so that we are saved from people will come for these things rather than any spiritual advancement. Is it okay, sir?
Yeah.
Yes. Subramaniam, is dhyanam the same as meditation? Yes. Dhyanam and meditation is one and the same. It is one and the same. Dhyanam is a Sanskrit word.
Meditation is English.
Meditation is English. Both means the same thing.
Okay. But in our all our mantras and other scriptures, there is always dhyanam. It says.
Yes.
Dhyanam. Then you are expected to.
You are expected to focus for a few seconds. For the minimum, with the minimum intellect you have, you can focus for a few seconds, for a few minutes. In all the slokas, there is this portion called dhyanam. It comes. Dhyanam means pay attention now. For the bhakti type, they use the word dhyanam and say focus. For the karma yoga type, they will use pranayama and say focus. That is why when you are doing rituals, pranayama keeps coming in between. When you are doing the rituals, pranayama keeps coming in between because for the active type, pranayama is the method to bring in focus. For the devotional type, you have to use the word dhyanam. They use the word dhyanam. Means focus. Mind is going everywhere. Focus now. It's a reminder to focus. You are not asked to do that meditation in the way that it is meditation. You are asked to focus. So the word dhyanam in the shloka is more of dharana. Word dhyanam there is used in the sense of dharana means concentration, not single pointed concentration. Concentrate on the chant. Focus on what you are doing, we say, no?
Okay.
Focus on what you are doing. That is dhyana.
Yes. Don't run.
Not the single pointed matra amatra dhyana. Not the single pointed one. What people do straight away is the matra amatra because they all want to plunge into silence. They want to experience silence. They come and talk this language, no? Are you able to follow?
Yes.
So that is not, that kind of meditation can be done only by an advanced spiritual aspirant. Is it okay, Subramaniam?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. With this, we conclude for today. Next session, we continue with Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion.